anybody who's doing the dairy dynamics class, I'm about to start that right now. So, gather around, all ye anxious and curious ears. Cool? This is my turnout? Excellent. Okay. So, this one is going to be a little more informal than the last class, because it's mostly going to be demonstrations. And then maybe we'll do some hands-on time as well if you guys are interested in maybe trying some of these things out. First thing we're going to go over is a bit of theory stuff. Dairy dynamics. What are we talking about today? We're talking about how to get your milk to the point where you can do interesting things with it, what these interesting things you can do with it are, and why those interesting things are interesting and should be explored. Okay? In a very narrow sense, what we're talking about is latte art, but in a broader sense, what we're talking about is getting your foam consistency to a point where it captures all of those coffee aromatics, and it makes the coffee drinking process a more extrasensory experience. Everybody knows when you drink coffee, it smells good and it tastes good. I mean, they're already but a very well-foamed milk can actually make a coffee experience feel good when you're drinking it. You can taste the coffee, but at the same time, all of those very microscopic bubbles are capturing the aromatics, and they're releasing them into your nose as you're drinking, so your olfactory system, just in general, can really go wild if you have some really, really well-steamed milk. The latte art is a flourish, right? If you steam milk a certain way, it becomes a very pleasurable experience. If you pour your shots a certain way, it produces a certain product, right? When you combine the two, when you combine well-steamed milk with a well-pulled espresso shot, you are able to create this flourish at the end called latte art. But if you can't do any of those basic fundamentals to begin with, then you can never do the latte art. So it's not really about art. It's about getting your milk where you want it to be so that it'll be a pleasurable drinking experience. Cool? There's some physics, or not physics, but sort of some biology, chemistry, some sciencey stuff involved. First and foremost, you have to understand that milk is is it a suspension or a suspension? It's a liquid that is made of water, but it also contains a lot of fat and protein molecules. These fat and protein molecules react in a certain way to heat that is conducive to creating basically chains of molecules that create a very creamy mixture. Okay? As I was explaining to Anthony a minute ago, basically, a protein molecule, or a fat molecule. A fat molecule is a hydrogen napkin, but they do that around air pockets, right, which creates your bubbles. They're also wrapping around each other, creating this chain, and that chain is what creates this sort of creaminess to a very well microphone milk mixture. Okay, things to keep in mind.
But don't go longer.
With your both in a fridge or on ice at any given moment, you don't really have that luxury at the moment. That's fine, because the milk is still pretty cold. For a 6-ounce cappuccino, you only need about 4.5 ounces of water, or of milk. I'm going to fill up my steam pitcher till about 1 thumb's width below the bottom of the spout. Check that out. Y'all watch this completely backfire on me because this machine, the steam one, is super powerful, but this will work for now. Huh? I was. Indeed. I'm actually going to go over it. I was shocked. Shocked, I say. I'm going to make a cap. One of these days. Okay, so, from y'all that were in attendance in my last class, what is my first step right now? What am I doing? Excellent. Exactly right. Okay, so I'm going to disengage. No, re-engage. Alright. So as a coffee ages in general, it's get rid of all that excess steam. That, of course, is one of the nastier byproducts of having a single small boiler. There's just not a lot you can do about it. You're at the mercy of the technology. Let's just That's ridiculous.
So, the second cup.
There we go. Okay. So, we're going to purge until our heating element comes on. Anytime now. There we go. Start my timer. And now, dry out my filter. And dose and get my coffee. Purge just a bit. Make sure that it's being steamed before I reset my pitcher. Okay, so we go ahead and lock in, begin brewing. Alright, now here is really what this class is all about. If y'all want, you can gather in closely and we will try to take an in-depth look at this technique a little more. Cool? Okay, so I'm going to start simply by purging my C1. That is to hopefully get rid of any of those condensed milk particles that still remain. My sugar ready to go on the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, and I'm going to do things a little differently this time because this is actually more powerful than I was expecting. I'm going to start with my steam wand completely submerged in the milk. I'm going to start with it completely submerged in the milk. I'm going to cut it on, not quite full power, and then immediately I'm going to drop down until I get my steam wand just below the surface of the milk, and I'm going to start introducing some air. Hopefully this will keep all of our faces from being scalded. Okay? I'm going to, after I turn this on, immediately lower my hand to the side of the pitcher and circulate temperature. As soon as I feel this milk become slightly warm, which means it's going above body temp, I'm going to submerge my pitcher once more in, or my steam wand once more in my pitcher. I'm going to try to angle the steam wand off to the side a little bit so that the air will push the milk down around the curvature of the pitcher and whip it up into a vortex. That vortex is super important. That takes your milk from being foamy to being super creamy. Cool? So that's a very integral step. So, let's see this in practice. I'm going to cut that on, immediately introduce some air. When it goes above body temp, I submerge it more. Do you guys see that sort of spiral that's occurring? It's subtle, but it's actually happening below the surface more than it is up on top. When it reaches a point where it's just barely too hot to hold on to, you know that it's around, depending on your personal temperature aversion, you know it's anywhere between like 140 and 160 degrees. 160 is a little high, but 140 is about perfect, right? So right when it becomes a little too hot for you to hold on to, cut off the power. Take your pitcher out and sort of sit it to the side. I like to let it age for about 3 to 5 seconds, just enough for that foam to sort of stabilize a little bit. I give it a couple of firm taps to release any of the bigger bubbles in a swirl to reincorporate the mixture after those big bubbles have popped, and I'm ready to pour art. This is a bit full, so I'm going to actually dump a little bit out. Now you'll notice the top is shiny. It's got almost a like liquid metal appearance, or like a wet paint. That's the perfect sort of consistency you're looking for, okay? So I'm going to give it a swirl and I'm going to do my pour. A heart is the first design that we're going to explore. It's very simple. I'm going to begin my pour with a little elevation. I'm going to fill my cup up about halfway and immediately drop down, tilting my pitcher forward, maintaining a constant